All right. So good, I'll assume good afternoon with the audience here. Probably the vast majority of people are in the European market. If anybody's in the United States, well, good morning to you. Welcome to part 2 of our webinar series, Maximizing Configuration Manager for the Modern World. This session, part 2, is dealing with managing Windows 10 migrations. I'm getting you from your earlier platforms like a Windows 7, Windows 8.1 over to Windows 10. You're probably familiar with Kent and myself, but to quick intro, my name is Wally Mead, a Principal Program Manager with Cireson. Been with Cireson about 3.5 years. I'm after 22 years at Microsoft in the Configuration Manager product group, so been around for a long time with the product. And my esteemed colleague presenting with me today is Kent. Kent, I'm sure you're all familiar with you, but go ahead and let them know who you are as well.
Yeah, so my name is Kent, and I'm currently in Copenhagen, where I've been all week, which is kind of nice because Copenhagen is home. Been working just like Wally, not as long as Wally has. I've been working with Configuration Manager since '96, since it was called SMS 1.2. And I'll say, in all of my years working with Configuration Manager, I've never seen as many changes as I do right now. I mean, the product team is really, it's amazing what they deliver. So I'm super excited. And once in a while, I'm pretty sure it's the same for you, Wally. We hear, like stories about Configuration Manager going away and so on and so forth. But I mean, nothing could be further from the truth. And as a matter of fact, it just announced last week that now we are managing 100 million devices on the new current branch platform. So it's not going away.
Yeah, those rumors have been around for a long time, ever since I think it was Windows 2000 with the birth of what was it, Telomere and Active Directory. Yeah, I remember those. So yeah, and you're right. The product group is just doing fantastic work so quickly now, whereas before it was years between releases where you saw anything new other than some hot fixes and stuff. So fantastic. Okay, let's go ahead and jump in. A couple of housekeeping notes here for you guys. You guys are all in listen-only mode, so you're not going to be able to speak verbally to us. So if you have questions, go to the questions panel in your go to webinar interface and just type those questions up, and we'll review those questions at the end of the presentation. Because we're not going to review them till the end, please do go ahead and put some context around your question. Just don't say why not as a question, because by the time we get to the questions in about an hour, we're not going to remember where we were when you said why not, ask why not. So put a little context around there, and that would be great. The session is being recorded. So it's recording is going, and it will be posted up on our Vimeo channel. So vimeo.com/Team Cireson, all one word, by the end of the week, certainly. So it'll be available for you to review later on or to pass off to a colleague who wasn't able to join us live. So please do ask questions. Whether it didn't have to be on the specific topic that Kent and I are talking about today, but anything that's appropriate for you, we'll do our best to answer them for you. And if we don't know the answer, we can always get back to you later on. So with that, we're going to have Kent kicking off with talking about the Windows 10 migration process, and then I'll come in a little bit later on and do some additional stuff. So Kent, take it away.
Yeah, will do. So I'll just flip the screen here. So in just a few seconds, you should be seeing my screen.
And I do see it fine.
Okay. So if you see it, Wally, I just check that everybody else is seeing it. So a couple of things here. First of all, as Wally's saying, I'm working for CT Global, and we are a very happy partner with Cireson, and also partnering up with other partners like Microsoft, Lenovo, Lookout, and so on and so forth. We are a global consultancy firm with offices in the States and also various parts of Europe, and we have been around since '99. Besides working with great people like Wally, I'm also fortunate enough to work with some of the other MVPs that we have in the industry and some of the other industry leaders that we have. And we primarily focus on data center and enterprise mobility, all the good stuff around Windows and devices. And for the last year or so, we have also been an Intune Elite partner, and that's another interesting part of managing Windows 10, but I'll get to that. So we we build all of our services on top of what we call visualization and automation. So we try to be as smart about our services as possible. And being smart in terms of automation is not always enough, especially not when you have to convince someone like a manager. Then you also have to visualize what you're saying and what the environment looks like, especially when we're doing Win 10 migration. So I'll get back to that. And those were the marketing slides. So let's jump into the Win 10 migrations here. When we talk Win 10 and we talk configuration manager, it's really important to understand what is coming. And also, how do we get to the other side, and maybe define the other side as well. And you know, do we want to go to the other side? And why we're talking about that, it's different to understand the difference between Windows 10 deployment and Windows 10 enrollment, and also choosing the right management platform. I'm pretty sure that it doesn't come as a surprise to you when I say that, you know, choosing the right management platform for most of us in here will probably be, you know, sticking around with configuration manager. But there might be some scenarios where you want to have configuration manager co-manage your Windows 10 devices. So I'm going to talk a little about that. So first of all, deployment versus enrollment. You are probably familiar with the traditional deployment process. You know, we build an image. We have our golden image or our reference computer here. We capture that image, we copy that to configuration manager, we test and validate, we release it to production, and then we do it all over again in 4 weeks' time. That is what we have been doing now for, I would say, almost like 20 years, something like that. I've written in here that it's kind of expensive. As a servicing company, we think that's super cool. It's also time consuming. Of course, we can automate all of this. And once you automate it, you know, you can get all of this down to a simple click in an interface, and then it will automatically capture the image. There are very good reasons why you want to do this and why you want to keep on doing this in Windows 10, because at the end of the day, you will get a corp image tailor-made for your environment. But I would say, especially over the last 6 to 12 months, we are seeing a couple of challenges here. More and more organizations are coming to us and say, you know what, we have people working from home, so we want to have some kind of self-service deployment. We want the end user to go out to Best Buy or what have you, and buy their own device, and then, you know, just enroll it using almost like a consumer experience. They type in the username, they type in the password, and on top of that, they will become fully managed. This sounds like a super great idea, and it is if it's working. Right now, it's not really working. It's not really, you know, enterprise ready. And I'm saying right now because right now we have Configuration Manager 1706 and we have Intune 1709. But that will all change in the next release, because in the next release of Configuration Manager, we will have something called co-management, meaning I can enroll my device as long as I have an internet connection. I'll get it enrolled into Azure Active Directory. I'll get it enrolled into Intune, and then via Intune, I will get it enrolled into Configuration Manager. I'll get it fully domain joined, and now I have a device here that is being co-managed, where I can go into Configuration Manager and say, well, I want conditional access to be managed by Intune, but I want all the other services to be managed by Configuration Manager. So what we're getting in 1710, which hopefully is just around the corner, is actually the ability to have our end users enroll their own devices, and that being, you know, using a device that they just go into Best Buy and get. So we probably don't have to keep updating all our images the same way as we have been doing in the past? Well, I'm not naive, so I know this is not going to change overnight, but it is definitely something you have to worry about when you, or as you look into your Windows 10 management and your Windows 10 migrations. So deployment versus enrollment, big changes and big differences between the two in here. So where is it that we want to be? So what is Nirvana here? In the middle here, you have my Windows 10 device. And on top of that, I have Microsoft 365. Microsoft 365 is a license, right? It will give me Office 365 Pro Plus, it will give me EMS, and it will give me Windows 10. And within EMS, I have a configuration manager license as well. So this is kind of the bigger picture. So simplified management and security. As I mentioned, I can just enroll my device. I can use a self-service deployment to enroll the device, my username and my password, and then by pure magic, all of a sudden I'll be managed by both Intune and SCCM in here. I'll talk to other parts of the slide here as I move along. This being managed by Intune purely is what we define as modern management. Modern management is something Microsoft has talked about for, I would say, at least the last year, maybe even the last 2 years. And I don't know if they expected that we would all just do a big bang and then migrate the entire organization from a well-known, trusted platform into an all cloud-based solution. And nevertheless, that didn't happen. We have a lot of MDM customers here at CT Global, but most of them are managing mobile devices using MDM. They're not managing their Windows 10 devices. And the truth is, we have some obstacles. We have obstacles like our Windows Win32 apps. In an average company, I see, maybe 200, 300, 400 legacy applications, and there is no way we can live without them. We also have a lot of group policies, and those group policies kind of require that you do belong to an Active Directory, and living without those group policies is not as easy. It might be a dream, but before we can convert most of them to an MDM policy, it's not going to happen. And then of course, not all of us are Azure Active Directory connected today, so that's also another obstacle. But what Microsoft is giving us with 1710 is they're just simply building the bridge here, so we can go in the pace that we want to go, and we don't even have to go all the way up till the end here. We can stop right where we want to stop because the devices can be managed with SCCM and Intune at the exact same time. And it doesn't have to be all devices. It can be, just some of your devices in here. So I would say there are kind of a lot of changes. So, the path to modern management has been, well, before we got co-management, it was like either a big switch transition, right? The entire bus goes over to the island and everybody are happy, but that's not really happening unless something else dramatically is happening within the IT organization. Like, hey, we're all hit by a WannaCry, we have to rebuild everything anyway. Group by group transition. In large organizations, I see this, but it's more like, we do a pilot group and then we go back and do our daily work because all of a sudden, the real world just kept up with us here. And I think Microsoft realized that these two here, although they might work in theory, they don't really work in the real world. I mean, Intune over here is not feature compliant with everything we have in SCCM, and there is no way we can live without our Win32 applications. There is no way we can live maybe without all of the richness we have in inventory and so on and so forth. So they have to build a bridge, and that bridge is what we call the co-management here. Co-management, will allow me, as I said, to have a Windows 10 device. It has to be a Windows 10 device because the Windows 10 device has a built-in MDM agent. It will allow me to enroll the Windows 10 device here in Azure Active Directory and thereby being managed by Intune, and at the same time get a config manager installed. So now you have kind of both a best of both worlds. Oh wow, that's not easy. Of both worlds. That was what I was trying to say. And I see a lot of value in here. I mean, all the old ways of managing my device, I'll definitely use Configuration Manager here. But when we talk about compliance policies and conditional access and some of all the new stuff, I'm going to use Azure to do that, because at the end of the day, it is really residing within Azure anyway. So it's just so much easier to do it in here. And of course, for those of us who are still stuck with Windows 7 machines, we don't have co-management because we don't have a built-in MDM agent. You can do this in two different ways. So, we probably already have some Windows 10 machines in our existing Configuration Manager environments. For those of us, there will be a simple process where we can, by collection, we can go in and say, now I want to enroll these machines here. When I enroll the machines, they will automatically be Azure Active Directory joined, still have the AD domain joined, they'll still have the Configuration Manager agent, and then I can say, so what features or what workloads do I want Intune to manage, and what workloads do I want to, have to be managed or stay within SCCM. If it is a new device, then Microsoft announced a service called Windows Autopilot. Windows Autopilot is a self-provisioning service where I can, go in, get a new device, and that new device has a device ID, which is like almost like a hardware hash. It's unique, and that device ID is already uploaded into our Intune or Azure tenant, so it already belongs to my organization. Of course, there are some challenges there. How do we get the device ID up there? But the vendors, Lenovo, HP, Fujitsu, and so on, they've already announced support for this. So they will, from early 2018, they will have some services where where they can upload the device IDs to our Intune tenants, and by that automatically we don't have to sit and import anything. We just have to approve the upload. So Autopilot, kind of the same as Apple device enrollment program. If you're familiar with that, the device is already attached to my tenant. So when I enroll my device here, and I can show you that in a few seconds here, it will automatically become enrolled in Intune. It will automatically become enrolled in Azure Active Directory, and we will also have an offline domain join here, so it will also become AD domain join. How does it work? Now, it's not released yet, so I just had some screenshots here. So in 17.10, or also in the technical preview that they announced this at Ignite, so it's not like I'm showing you something that is not public. But you will have co-management. So when you go in and configure co-management within Configuration Manager, you have to sign into your Intune subscription. So this only works, co-management is only something we have when we have Intune, right? Otherwise it's single management. The reason why you have to sign into Intune is we need Intune and Configuration Manager to work together to figure out who's actually doing what, so we don't have any conflicts. As you do that, you'll see here that I have something called automatic enrollment in Intune, and I can say none, or it can be a pilot group, and a pilot group in Configuration Manager is a collection, or it can be all my devices. You'll also notice down here, it might be a little difficult to see, but here I have my CCM setup command line. So this is the string that I will attach to my SCCM application. So I'll upload the application into Intune, and by doing that, it will automatically be enrolled my SCCM agent once I enroll or onboard my clients here. This is using the Cloud Management Gateway. So if you don't have the Cloud Management Gateway yet, that's actually a great way to get started, and I'll show you that in just a few seconds here. So once I've done this, just select it. You can see here, I'll just go in and select whether or not I want a pilot, I want all. I'm brave, but not that brave, so I'm going to do the pilot first here. Then the next thing is I configure the workloads. So, what do I want my compliance policies to be managed by Configuration Manager, or maybe to be managed by Intune. So I have in the beginning here I have a couple of workloads, but I do imagine that as we progress here we'll see more and more workloads. So for me, it would make perfectly good sense to start up with your compliance and also to start up with your resource access policies. So compliance policies would be you can only access your mail if you're compliant here. My resource access policies would be my mail policies, and so on and so forth. Windows update policies, I need to see that, I need to see that proven first. Not that I don't trust Windows Update for Business, but it's Windows updates for us is often much more than that. It's also third-party updates and what have you. So you see, we don't have the third-party update integration in Windows Update for Business, so that might be a few weeks out. And then I'll go in and I select my pilot group, and then I'll select my exclusion group. So we have management telling us that we need to do everything cheaper and faster, and yet they want to be excluded. That's usually how it is. Once I've done that, then I've enabled co-management. So how can we prepare for that today? Well, first of all, if you don't have EMS, you should go in and get EMS. You can sign up for a trial here. You need to go to Configuration Manager 1710 once it's released, and you should also take a look at the Cloud Management Gateway today. All of this will require the Creators Update, the fall edition. So that would be 1709 when we talk Windows 10 here. So this is like what the future is going to look like. If I switch here, because I don't want to do an all slide only. If I switch here and then take a look at my own insights, then when we get to Windows 10, it is one of the first thing you want to do is you want to provide insights into your Windows 10 upgrade. So I'm upgrading my machines using a standard task sequence here. How does it work? Can I actually monitor this process? Once I have my Windows 10 machines, I have defined what I call CT Global Health in here. So my health is really just to visualize whether or not my devices are compliant. And being compliant, especially around Windows 10, can be, do you have enough disk space? Are the services running that I want? And also, are you on the correct Windows 10 version? So in here, I have a couple of the devices not on the correct version, meaning that I can use our Insight Analytic here to go in and see, okay, so you're non-compliant, meaning that probably you have another version, and I can see here that this is the check, and it's failing on that specific check. So even though it's Windows 10 and Windows 10 is more stable and all of that good stuff, you still need to have insight into how your organization is being managed. And the same goes when we're dealing with software updates. Software updates, we're working with cumulative updates in Windows 10, but there are still so many good reasons why you're never reaching your 100% compliance here. So you can see for September I'm only 75% compliant. And I have some reasons for that. I might be have some devices that are dealing with a reboot pending. I might have clients that are not active. I might have clients that are, dealing with WSUS issues and so on and so forth. So having some insight here, for instance, to my client activity and my client health, that helps me a lot. And active clients, why don't I have, 100% active clients? The answer could very well be within my SCCM platform. So let me just go to my SCCM platform. Within SCCM, I would say one of our challenges is that, we don't control our internet-based clients. So our internet-based clients in Windows 7 clients and also in the older versions of Configuration Manager, by tradition, we are left with what we call IBCM, which is you have to configure a server in your DMC, configure a management point, distribution point, software update point, and then get everything running with certificates. That has been quite a challenge for many, and Microsoft realized that, and they needed to simplify the whole infrastructure here. So we have an Azure service now that we can integrate with SCCM called the Cloud Management Gateway. The Cloud Management Gateway will give you internet support. As long as your clients, they have an internet connection, we can manage the client, so we can deploy software updates to them, Defender updates and what have you. We can also get client activity, we can deploy policies and so on and so forth. What I have here is, when I look at my Azure service, and this is a service, so I don't really have to set up anything. I just need my subscription ID. I need a certificate. And besides that, I also need to upload a couple of certificates here. So if I look at my certificates, I need to upload my trusted root certificate, and if I have any intermediate certificates, I also need to do that. And that is more or less the only thing you have to do. So you don't need to have any HTTPS services running internally if you don't want to do that. Now, I did tell you about the Autopilot experience that you can enroll using a user, and then you can get the SCCM client installed. One of the features that enables this is Azure Active Directory user discovery. So I have Azure Active Directory user discovery running here, which is again another cloud service. So if you have your users in Azure Active Directory, will actually be using the user object itself to authenticate with the entire service here, meaning that I do not have to rely on the certificates as I had to in the old days. This I've been working with the Cloud Management Gateway for, I would say, at least the last 8 or 9 months. And it's becoming more and more stable. It was released first, I think it was like in 1610, and then it was updated in 1702. And with 1706, we have seen a lot of improvements in this one here. And it's just running. There's literally no or very, very little maintenance in here. And compared to having my own DMC environment, I prefer this one here. So I have that. And if you want to just deal with software updates and and policies and all of that good stuff, you're good. If you also want to deploy software to your Windows 10 devices, then you also need to have a cloud distribution point. So the cloud distribution point is another Azure service, and this is almost like a normal distribution point in the sense that you have to go ahead and deploy content, and clients will just download the traditional applications from the cloud distribution point. They will fall back to the cloud DP. You can configure that. So if they're on-prem, they will try one from their own boundary group first here. So getting content and controlling your Windows 10 machines can be done the old traditional way, or it can be done, as I've shown you here, using what we call co-management, and also by using some of the Azure services here. The cool thing is it's not a big bang, and I would say setting up the Cloud Management Gateway, that's something that can be done quite quickly. So you don't have to set aside a full week to do this, like you would have to if you're setting up, IBCM environment in a DMC in here. So this is definitely a path, a way to the future. And if I look at my client here just before I hand it over to Wally, so this client here is an internet-based client. It's communicating client certificate, communicating with my cloud management gateway. I'll see that in the network setting, and this is the same setting, part of the same setting that I will configure when I upload my SCCM agent into Intune. And if I look here in some of the log files, because we don't do a config manager session without a log file, you'll see here in my data transfer service log here that when I deployed my my updates, it actually grabbed the updates from WSUS, so that would be Microsoft updates, not from my update point. And it was doing that because it was already on the internet, so there's no reason for the client to go, internally and download it when it can do it from Microsoft. And when downloading it from Microsoft, I'm not paying for any of the data here, so that's just public data. Yeah. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Wally.
All right, fantastic, Kent, and that's great info. I'm sure that I know you touched on the Cloud Management Gateway a couple of weeks ago in our session, but certainly the Autopilot and the co-management stuff that they've just really announced at Ignite last week. It's a lot of good information that's new for the vast majority of us, so that is all great to see.
It's going to be a game changer.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that.
Okay, so I have control again, and okay, that looks like my screen there, so very good. So let me go over here and let me kick back off the slides. And so I do finish up here. Oops, there we go. All right, so, and you got my slides okay, Kent? See my screen?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, got it. Good, great, thanks. Okay, so Kent talked for the last half hour or whatever about how you can start getting over to Windows 10 and talked about the co-management features, which are looking really cool in the Cloud Management Gateway and so on. And he talked a little bit about some of the management capabilities of that co-management, which is really interesting how you can have Intune do part of your process for management as well as configuration manager do part of it. And that's looking really exciting, and I think it's going to benefit because, as Kent mentioned, the product group has been adding more and more features to Intune, and in some cases things like compliance settings, resource access, and so on. They spend a little more, seem to give Intune a little more love in that area than Configuration Manager gets. So being able to share that management experience, so you get as he said, the best of both worlds, is fantastic. So what I want to talk about is how you can extend your reach of Configuration Manager within IT, because a lot of times people are afraid of doing that. So Kent might be the only person in CT Global that does Configuration Manager just because he knows it because he's been around it for 20 years, but also because of the fact that it takes a little time to train people on the Configuration Manager console. It takes a little effort to get the role-based administration set up in Config Manager so those people that are using the console can only see and do what you want them to do and still may not get there entirely. So let's just talk about how you can use the Cireson portal for Configuration Manager to help you out in that area. Get context. There we go. So just a couple of the obligatory marketing slides that Kent had about Cireson. We've been around for close to 6 years now. Started as a servicing company doing services on System Center, primarily around Service Manager. Found a lot of usability gaps in Service Manager, so started writing some apps to help our customers out. Those were really, really popular, so it turned into the first bullet on your screen on the far left, Service Management. So we created a stream or a suite of applications to help you out in the Service Manager space, whether as an analyst or as an end user, with self-service portals and so on, as well as analyst portals. Then we moved into asset management, which allowed you to take that great data that Configuration Manager has. Can't reference the fantastic inventory data from Configuration Manager that's not quite in Intune yet. Well, being able to take that data from Config Manager, putting it into a Service Manager database, and allowing you to provide your financial, your contractual, your warranty, your cost center, your location basis, all that data around your hardware and software assets to really give you true lifecycle management. Then we delved into Configuration Manager space, which we're hitting heavily now. We have 4 free apps available from our website you can go ahead and download from Cireson.com that help you with remotely managing clients or providing ticker notifications to your clients, managing user device affinity relationships, and so on. And now the Cireson portal for Configuration Manager that we'll talk about. As you can see, we're spread quite around the world. I think it's 64 or 65 countries now where we have customers all around the world. What we're really proud of is our 99% renewal rate. So we're finding that customers that do buy into the Cireson benefits, they see those year over year and they keep renewing their service and maintenance contracts with us. And just some name dropping here of some of our fans. You see Copenhagen Business School up in Kent's area, but Microsoft, Dell, San Francisco Giants baseball team or Chelsea FC football club, Toyota, a lot of different retail market areas. We have customers that are utilizing our technologies. And just where we sit in, the vast majority, almost all of our products sit on top of System Center, whether it's Service Manager or Configuration Manager. So we primarily sit up there. We have one product, a password reset solution that doesn't require any System Center at all. But for the most part, we're sitting on top of System Center, which is where the product I'm going to talk about now does sit. So the Cireson portal for Configuration Manager, which is there to make your work life easier. And I introduced these in our session a couple of weeks ago, so I'll go through these bullet points pretty quickly and just get you into a demo for the rest of the time. We're a web-based interface, so the whole world is moving to web services and web interfaces, and Configuration Manager has not gotten there. That's one of the #1 requests I always got when I was in the product group from our top customers and other customers. I want a web interface, and never did one. So we think we've created a very intuitive web interface. It's easily accessible from Chrome, from Edge, from Internet Explorer. So to give you a very simple interface that's easy to use, intuitive, you don't have to do a lot of training on it. We want to take the data that Configuration Manager provides to you, all that rich, valuable data, but present it in a format that we think is much easier for your service desk technicians to go ahead and utilize to help troubleshoot an end user's problem when they call in. Providing you with the ability of configuring that security, that role-based administration very, very easily, so only the people that you want to have access to those computers, those users, those pieces of software, those task sequences, which are important for today's topic, have that capability. And so the web interface will adjust automatically to what roles or what features you give those users. We want to take those functionalities that Configuration Manager provides for you and enhance them. For example, today I'm going to show you, since we're doing Windows 10 migration, you all know how to create a task sequence that Kent referenced through Configuration Manager. And you can think about in your mind the complexity of that wizard and how long it takes to go through that wizard. And then the process of going through a deployment, remembering all those checkboxes or all those radio button settings or configuration item settings you have to configure. Well, we create templates and allow you to have templates there. So when you want to create a task sequence, you'll see very simply, I name it, I click a load template, it fills in all the values for me. I can change things I want to change for this specific task sequence, but for the most part, everything's done for me. Now, when I want to deploy that task sequence, again, I start a deployment, I click load template, and bingo, all my settings are set that way I want. So we try and enhance or make easier the functionality that Configuration Manager provides for you, and you'll see that. What you're going to see today, first off, my first demo, is what we call our commence solution. So it's an OSD front end. So it's for bare metal provisioning or reinstalling an operating system if it's an existing computer in Configuration Manager. You'll see this easy to utilize, hopefully intuitive interface for you to walk you through the provisioning process of a computer through the Configuration Manager task sequencing process. And then you want to do reporting. Kent had some great dashboards that he had configured in his environment for his demo. And you want to have that type of reporting. So we give you a dashboard that you'll see with some high-level information as a quick snapshot glance at your current status of your environment. You want to do reporting. Look at those configuration manager reports in the box or ones you've created yourself. Well, don't provide me the 477 or whatever it is reports out of the box and I have to go dig through those. Give me just those half dozen, that 8 or whatever number of reports it is that I find valuable from my organization. Just show me those and don't make me have to weed through all of those. So that's what we'll see here momentarily. So what we're really targeting here is these middle 3 personas, the service desk analyst who has an easy to use interface to go out there and find the data that he needs to resolve that end user's call very, very quickly and easily. Desktop server support, deploying software, maybe creating your task sequences, maybe creating your software that you want to have deployed in there. IT management, giving them a reporting engine that they can go and utilize without having a lot of complexities and just giving them the reports that they need access to. The end user is happier because his issues are resolved more quickly because the service desk analyst is more efficient now. And the config man admin, you're probably still going to use the configuration manager console for 99% of the stuff you're doing, but there may be those times where you don't have access to your computer, so you want to go ahead and go to the web, connect up, and use the CMP to go ahead and do whatever job you need to get done. So with that, let's go ahead and jump on over. So I'm going to start with this guy right here. So you should be seeing, let me look at, yep, you see that, and I apologize, it's a Hyper-V bare metal client, so can't get any much bigger than that, but this is the beginning of our commence front end. So all I did was, it's a brand new Hyper-V computer, so no operating system on it. I did a Pixie boot into Configuration Manager, and it's kicked off our commence front end. So I'm going to go ahead and log in as a service desk analyst, so I want to provision a computer for a user. Oops, I just typed the password. There we go. So now we validated that the user used has rights to utilize commence, because you don't want to have Kent coming into my organization and Pixie booting, getting my image. So he has to have login capabilities. So now this is our commence front end. So the first thing we get to do is pick an OSD template, and I'll show you these a little bit later on when I get into the admin portion of the demo, but I only have access to one template, and that's for new workstations. Notice that it automatically has a naming format for me. So I set for my workstation computers, my naming format is WKS for workstation, then 3 digits for the number. So it's my first workstation I've set up. And we'll track these and we'll automatically increment, depending upon the templates you pick, to the next numerical value for your naming format. So you can have a consistent naming sequence in your organizations. You don't have random names, don't have a lot of mini NTs out there, or have to worry about complex task sequences and prompting users with things to do this. Now I go to the operating system tab and I pick my operating system. So notice right here it says OSD Task Sequence is nothing. Now if I go and pick, I've only given them access to one OSD Task Sequence, so it's a collection Windows 10 deployments and install Windows 10. As soon as I pick that, it fills in my information for that operating system. I want to set user device affinity, so I'll go to Wally. If you have access to MDT, you're integrated with it, I can pick an MDT role, which is just additional software I want to have deployed, and I'll select that in. I can go ahead and select whatever OUs I've given this service desk technician to have access to, and I've only given them access to the workstations OU. You'll see I have other OUs later on. And that's really all I have to do. I pick what template I want, so it gives my name. I pick the operating system I want. If I want UDA association, I can do that. And if I have MDT integrated, I pick MDT roles and an OU. Now the inventory tab allows me to go ahead and verify or just see the current hardware inventory real time on this bare metal client that I'm booting up right now. So it shows you the IP address I got from DHCP, my MAC address, my serial tag asset number, my memory, and so on. So I'm all set, ready to roll. Now we also do have this decommission tab, which is not important for our discussion right now, but decommission would be an existing computer that's already been used for Configuration Manager, and I want to get rid of it. So it's hit its 3 or 5 year hardware cycle. I'm going to be donating this off to charity. So I want to go ahead and decommission this computer, and if it's a real computer, it would have all my hard drives in here, I'd see those. But it's, again, bare metal client, so I don't have anything. And I would just choose the type of format I want, quick, normal, or secure format, which uses sdelete to go ahead and flatten that hard drive. And then I can go ahead and put this back in storage, or I can go ahead and do my donation to charity. and I'm not going to do that, so I'll just click Next. It gives me a quick summary of what's going to happen. And now when I click Next, what it's doing now is actually creating WKS001 in Configuration Manager because it was an unknown computer. And if you don't want unknown computers, you can pre-provision these very easily through the CMP. So it's now added at the Config Manager. It's now putting it in that collection that I selected when I picked the Windows 10 task sequence. It's putting it in that collection, so finding the task sequence, the real Windows 10 task sequence that is going to be used to deploy this computer. So it's pulling that. And now any second now it tells me, okay, it's found that task sequence, so commence is going to exit shortly. So our process here is done. Now it's going to go ahead and reboot the computer, load the boot image that's associated with the Windows 10 installation task sequence, and then run through that task sequence. So this is what commence is that OSD front end to provide you that walkthrough of the deployment experience, allowing you to pick and choose some options, hopefully intuitively that makes sense to you, and then kick off this process going forward. So now commence is all done, and it's kicking off with the real OS deployment process. So we'll come back and look at him a little bit later on. But let's show you what that was doing in the background, or how I had to set that up. So here's my administrator interface. And let me just show you some of those things that we went through. So I'm logged in as an admin. So here's the dashboard we mentioned. So if I want to show you the Config Manager OSD stuff, I would go to OSD Settings. And what we saw was an OSD template. So here you see, oops, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to load zoom it. So give me 1 second, guys. Let me load zoom it for you so I can zoom in here and you guys can see better. I apologize for that. It's too early in the morning for me to be doing presentations. There we go. Okay, so now I got zoom in here. Do you see I have 2 templates, but when commence was running, I only saw this one called new workstations. Here you see my number sequencing, and my number sequence was workstations, and 1 to 20 was my numbering sequence, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. So I've got that created, and just to show you how easy it is to control, I went to permissions once I created these, and now you can see that desktop support, which is what my user was logged on as, has access to the new workstations OSD template, but he does not have access to new servers. So he's not going to be able, that's why he didn't see that inside commence. Now this OSD template referenced the workstations number sequence. So here's the number sequences. And if I go and show you what that number sequence looks like, it just says that my number sequence is 1 to 20 is what it's working with. So it's going to starting number is 1, going up to 20. So that's why it was 001 was my first number. And then I'll tie this back together in just a second. And here's permissions again. And here's my permissions. Desktop support has access to the workstations sequence, but not the servers one. And the OUs, notice I have 3 OUs that I've created, but again in permissions, desktop support has access to the workstations one. Now just to tie that all together again, if I go now and show you editing of the new workstations OSD template, you'll see that, excuse me, did I click edit? I thought I clicked edit. There we go. New workstations is the workstation number sequencing, and here's my number format, WKS, and then 3 digits. Those 3 digits are coming from this number sequence here. And then here was the MDT roles available, but my user only had access to workstation software, that's why I didn't see server software. And the default OU was computers, but my user only had access to the workstations OU, so that's why it showed workstations. So it kind of helps tie that all together. So you create these things in the CMP portal, provide access to them, and then the users will have access to them. So what we were deploying was a task sequence. So here's my task sequences. Here's my commence deployments task sequence that I had that kicked off initially, provide that UI, and then we launched off the install Windows 10 task sequence. So let me show you how easy it is to create these inside the portal. So I'm actually going to go ahead and load. Oh, before I go there, let me just show you the process in Config Manager and go to Devices. Here is that computer we created. Here's WKS001. It got added. It got added to this collection, Windows 10 deployments. You see it has 1 member, and the deployment targeted to it was install Windows 10. And so that client is in that collection. That's why he got that deployment once we pick that through commence. So here's that same user. Oops, let me continue my session so it doesn't time out on me. So you can see in the upper right-hand corner, There we go. You'll see I'm logged in as user 2, the same user that ran commence. So I want to go ahead and create a task sequence. So very simple, easy to do. And again, think in your mind about how complex this is in Configuration Manager. So I go to New, Task Sequence, and I'm going to create an OSD task sequence. And I'll say Windows 10 with Remote Manage. And then here's all those tabs, images, Windows, configure network, install client, and so on, that are different pages in the Configuration Manager wizard. They have no data on them right now. So for example, if I go to images, I have to select my boot image and my OS image. But if I go back here now and just load my template, so I'll go select my Windows 10 deployments OSD template and load it. And now it's loaded. As I click through these different tabs, now it's got my boot image x64, it's got my Windows 10 image, it's turned off, enabled partitioning, but turned off BitLocker because it's a Hyper-V image. Here's my organization name and configuration for the Windows. Here's my domain I want to join. And all I have to do is supply my password because we don't maintain that for security reasons. Here's the install Configuration Manager client with its proper parameter for my fallback status point. If I want to have user state migration, it's got the USMT package built in. I can turn off these if it's a bare metal client, which I know I'm doing right now. It wouldn't be anything to capture, but I can leave those on. My software update scenario, and I wanted to include an application, so let's go ahead and pick that. No, I don't want to save my password in Google Chrome. And bingo, that's all the harder it is to create that task sequence. Now it takes me to the task sequences. I see those 2 of the 3 task sequences that I showed you as an admin that this user has access to. It doesn't show that one I just created because we're waiting for it to get created in Config Manager. Now when I hit refresh, that task sequence will be here. There's Windows 10 with Remote Manage. So with that template, it helped fill in all those values for me. Now I could, as you saw, I was able to override some of those, such as I added a new application there. I want to deploy this task sequence. Very, very simple, easy to do. You saw this in our session 2 weeks ago, but I'll just show you again. Do deploy software. I'll do a standard software deployment. Since I'm on the software this time, it automatically has the software selected for me. When it pops up, there we go, the task sequence, Windows 10 with Remote Manage. Click Next. My target collection, here's that collection I maybe want, Windows 10 deployments. And now it has 1 member before it had 0 members. And I'm not going to add any computers in here because I want to deploy this as bare metal, so I'll leave it blank, no computers. And then for my deployment, notice that it's listed as available, only Config Manager clients, nothing unique on scheduling, user experience has nothing set, distribution points, nothing set. Now let me go ahead and load a deployment template. So I've got an OSD Task Sequence deployment template. Now notice it's changing this to a required deployment for only Media and Pixie. Scheduling is as soon as possible. User experience, we selected a couple checkboxes here. So that, again, is the power of the templates for not only creation of, in this case, a task sequence, but also the deployment of the task sequence. I don't have to rely on these desktop or server support people who are doing their work to remember to set these specific options. I've already got those options created and configured properly in my templates. Now, again, if I give them rights to, they can go ahead and override some of these settings and change as they deem necessary, but I want to be able to control that as much as possible so the things I know that need to be set are set properly, and we're off and ready to roll. So then I just go ahead and click Finish, and my task sequence has been deployed. So very, very simple, easy to do. I want to do some reporting on what's happening with my task sequence deployment. So I click on Reports, and you notice I only have, there's 5 reports there. I don't have one on task sequences. This user doesn't have the ability of linking a report. So let me go back as an admin. I'll go to Reports. And again, no task sequence report in here. So let's go ahead and link a report, which basically adds it in from Configuration Manager, whether it's built in or custom reports. I want to go down to task sequence deployments. And let's say all task sequence deployments. So go ahead and take that report. It's here. I want to make sure my desktop support person can have access to it. So I'll go to Permissions. Desktop support can view that report. And now if I just go back over to Chrome and do a refresh, all task sequence deployments. I run report. Now this is just kicking out the same report viewer that you would see from the Configuration Manager console, or if you went to the Report Manager website and launched off the report. So this is just Configuration Manager and really SRS processing that report. So it'll take this a moment to process, and then we'll be able to see what our status is of this task sequence deployment. I also have, I don't have it exposed here. If you look in the background, I don't have the dashboard, or not the dashboard, the deployments status node here in the navigation menu, but I could look at that to see if there's been any status back to the normal processing engine that comes from Configuration Manager. So here now it's finally loading the report. And again, this is SRS stuff. It's not the CMP that's any kind of delay here. And here's my install Windows 10 task sequence report. And we see that we currently have one computer running that. And I can drill, it's the normal drill and reports you would expect to see. And it's WKS, its last step is 20. I think there's 26 steps in a completed one. So it's nearing the end, getting there. And I can just, again, keep drilling through and see what the status of my task sequence deployment is. So it's just Configuration Manager reporting through SRS. So if we were to go and switch back over to that guy, we should see, looks like he's right now in the middle of a reboot process going through there. So, but you saw the task sequence report. He was making progress there, so he'll finish up shortly. It takes about 20 minutes or something like that, I wanted to say, when I tested this before, and it's been going for a little while now, 15 minutes or so, so getting close to the end. And we could just hit a review report and see if it's got anything further on there. Yeah, it still shows that, so we're good. Okay, so that is what that process looks like. And we'll go ahead and close him down. All right, so with that, hopefully you've seen some of the power of the Configuration Manager portal that we have to help you with your deployment of creation of task sequences to get you to Windows 10 or any other operating system you're doing. You can deploy any of the operating systems that Configuration Manager supports, but how easy it is, especially with those templates and that the web interface, that hopefully it's a little bit easier to walk through, and then the deployment process from that as well. Kent talked some great things about Configuration Manager and some of the future and the way Microsoft is moving with the modern management and now the co-management to give you that bridge to transition between the two different technologies, between the on-premise solution and getting you some of that new modern management that Microsoft has been very, very heavily working on the last few years, and just getting us there. So as the second bullet says, over the first one, both Kent and I believe that Configuration Manager is great, and that's why we never believed the rumors that always came out over the years about Configuration Manager going away. It is a fantastic product. Otherwise, we wouldn't be still doing it after as many years as we've been working with it. But you really do need to be on current branch, not anymore 2012 or Config Man 2007. So you want to be up on current branch release and trying to stay as current as possible with the technology, because a lot of new things happen in every build. And as Kent mentioned, it's fantastic and amazing to see how much they're doing in individual build releases as we cruise through. And it's very easy with the updates and servicing feature to stay up to date in your environment. So with Configuration Manager. And then with the Cireson portal for Configuration Manager, if you're interested in that, it's very easy to get a free community download if you want. You can just go to the URL on the website. You can really just go to Cireson.com, and I believe that the portal is the splash screen we have on Cireson.com right now, but directly to the Config Manager portal, and you can download a free community edition. It's basically, it's in essence, let me go back over here and go to the full admin experience. It's in essence this full admin experience, and you can set up your and now you can see I got 7 computers now, and it's got one as no OS yet. It hasn't reported in yet, that client that we just deployed, but it'll be a Windows 10 one as well. But it's basically this interface that doesn't allow you to create anything that would go to Configuration Manager. So when I created that task sequence, and I did that deployment earlier, those would have been created in Configuration Manager. So you can't do those things, but you can go ahead and manage your view Configuration Manager data. I can see all my computers. I can look at the inventory summary of those computers. And here you see WKS001 as an active client. And right now it's reports in that it's a client in Configuration Manager, so it's pretty much done with that process now. So you can see the status of your computers, you can look at the inventory summary, you just can't create anything that goes to Configuration Manager. So you can't create any new objects down here, but you can configure your security and just play around with it, get familiar with it. From there, there's a trial ability of doing a trial. So you can request a 30-day trial key from us, and we get you that trial key, and you actually just punch that into the Community Edition, and it converts it over to a fully functioning trial for 30 days. And you can go from there. So that's something you can explore if you wish. We also actually do have an Azure environment up there with, I think it's 3 different personas you can test out. So you can just go to Azure, log in there with one of our 3 personas and play around with some of these scenarios. I think it's a workstation guy, a server guy, and then a full admin. Those 3 different personas you can play around with. Anyway, so hopefully you saw something there beneficial that you liked, either from what Kent had talked about or from what I've talked about here. So at this point in time, we want to go ahead and go through questions. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and type them up and put them in the questions panel so Kent and I can go ahead and answer those for you and get you guys on with your day. Right now, I'm not seeing anything in the questions panel. I can't believe you wouldn't have any questions on either what I talked about or certainly what Kent talked about, just because of all the cool things that are coming in co-management and modern management. But if not, I'll hold out for a few minutes here and see if anybody else does ask anything. But so please do go ahead and fire off any questions you got. But if not, then again, thank you guys for taking the time out of your day to listen to us. Hopefully you heard something very beneficial and what you're excited about moving forward in Configuration Manager. This session, again, has been recorded, and I'll stop the recording here when I end the webinar, and we'll get it posted up to the vimeo.com/Team Cireson site. I'm sure it'll be by the end of the week. I saw the one we did a couple weeks ago. It's been up there for a while now, so it's usually just a day or so before we get it posted up to the Vimeo site, so you'll be able to, again, download it or watch it and pass it off to any of your colleagues that missed our session. So I'm not seeing any questions come on in. So apparently you must have told them everything they needed to know about co-management and getting to Windows 10 and modern management there, Kent. So fantastic on that.
It's so easy.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not seeing anything. So like I said, I'll hang out for another minute or so and see if anybody does pop in with any questions. But other than that, if you guys don't have, again, thanks for your time. And oops. There you go, got a question, Kent. Co-management won't be available till 1710, correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Yep.
So it's a 1710 feature, but it should be available in the technical preview. At least that's what I think they told us at Ignite. But you're right, it's a 1710 feature. Yeah,
for a production feature, and then it would be 1710, which y'all know it's 1710 right now, but that has to go through its internal processing and testing, and then TAP validation. So the new builds never come out until the beginning, at very end of the month or very beginning of the next month. So certainly don't expect 1710 in the next week or so. It's going to be a few weeks out yet, I'm sure. I'd be surprised. I don't think they've ever released, in the first half of the month for that build. So, because they want to do due diligence in their validation, so they get a bunch of TAP customers to test out in their production environments before they hand it off to all of us to get it going in our environment. But as Kent said, the tech previews, they usually come out around the middle of the month, and they should be in there because they usually don't put anything into production before they've had it in a technical preview. So it may very well be in that when it comes out. So thanks for that question, Hussein. Anybody with anything else for us? You're very welcome. All right, guys, it looks like nothing else is coming in, so let's go ahead and end this, and you guys can finish off your day, and I'll go get my my day going on, since it's a little after 7 a.m. over here in the Seattle area. So again, thanks for taking the time to view the webinar. And if anybody needs to pass this off to any coworkers or review it later on, again, the recording should be up in the next day or so. So just go to vimeo.com/Team Cireson. And if you missed our session that Kent and I did a couple weeks ago, that one is up there already. So you can go ahead and review that. And Kent did a little bit on the Cloud Management Gateway there, as well as a few other things in the last couple of releases of Configuration Manager. So thanks all, and you guys have a great rest of your day. And see you next week when we're talking, enterprise software distribution deployment best practices or something like that. Thanks for your time again, Kent, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a good day.
All right. Bye, everyone.